The King's Avatar, Chapter 1677 Hitting the Mountain to Warn the Tiger. Audio source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1677, Hitting the Mountain to Warn the Tiger. Translator, Nomiyami. Editor, Nomiyami. Everyone was stunned. This was the finals, the final battle, the moment that would decide the outcome of a year of hard work. Unity, tension, seriousness, those should all be expected, but surely they could pass on liveliness. Yet now, while Samsara was very seriously studying the environment and preparing for battle, what was Yishu's Lord Grimm doing? He was like a hooligan. A hooligan would be squatting at the intersection just next to the school and whistling at the cute girls that passed by. Lord Grimm was sitting on the pyramid and throwing all sorts of critical comments at Samsara. This scene wasn't right. It wasn't serious. But no matter how wrong it was, Yishu was doing just this, and the words were already spoken. This match simply had this kind of style and rhythm. It still had to be watched, and the explanation and analysis still had to be made, And so the broadcast followed what Yishu said, cutting to a close-up shot of the 3 o'clock direction behind Cloudpiercer, particularly that platform that Yishu mentioned. Once this close-up was given, everyone took a look, and those that understood realized that Yishu's words were completely correct. This location really was a very good sniping point. Little Jiang, your wave slash can completely lock that path on your left, did you realize? Wu Qi, that ambush point in the 11 o'clock direction is a pretty good place to hide. Ming Hua, did you find the best place to heal from? If you found it, then go and stand there, what are you still spinning around for? And also, Guy using one autumn leaf, did you notice the distance between those two broken walls behind one autumn leaf? If evil annihilation is held horizontally, it can't pass through that space. Did you guys increase evil annihilation's length? It wouldn't have been like this before. In an instant, one sentence per person. The broadcast couldn't even keep up, switching back and forth between shots, and ultimately just split the screen into multiple sections. These 4 people who were pointed out by Yishu, each got their own section of the screen. Everyone immediately realized, just like when he'd been talking to Josekai, Yishu wasn't just making things up. The things he'd pointed out about these 4 players, whether big or small, were all very real issues. But would the Samsara pros really be incapable of discovering these things themselves? Of course not. After all, they'd been investigating this area for longer than Yishu had. But the thing was, Yishu's Lord Grimm had just casually sat down on the pyramid and casually said these things, yet every needle he'd sent had drawn blood. This demonstrated his skill. Added onto his bearing, it really felt like he was giving pointers to Samsara. Immature, shameless, disgusting. A few Samsara fans decried Yishu's actions. It had to be said, trash talk could sometimes attack even the audience. But those who were at a higher level, especially the pro players, knew that this wasn't that simple. Yishu's actions weren't just to show off from above. He was hitting the mountain to startle the tiger, warning Samsara by saying, "Be careful, I can see through all of your plans." And to be able to do this, Yishu had made good use of the map. The 2 pyramids on this map could be called the high points. But because they were so large, even a launcher, the class with the longest attack range, could not effectively use supportive attacks when standing on the very peak. Furthermore, attacks from halfway up the pyramid would be extremely limited. Therefore, the high points of these pyramids could only be used as observation points, not in any strategic points. Thus, Yishu discovered the reconnaissance use of this location, and looking down upon him, he began to analyze Samsara's deployment. Before anything else, he was attacking Samsara on a psychological level. If Samsara could not restrain themselves and immediately came to attack Yishu's Lord Grimm, then they would definitely suffer for it. Lord Grimm didn't need to be mentioned, and the other 4 happy players were already prepared at another side of the pyramid. If Samsara came their way to attack, Happy would have the map advantage. But when it came to pro players, the chances of that happening were far too small. In this kind of critical battle, Samsara definitely would not take an action like this that would put them at a clear disadvantage. But Happy still prepared for this possibility. Even though this was such a small chance, they would not pass it up. Samsara, as expected, was not so hasty. After being criticized by Yishu, they only hesitated for a moment, but afterward, everyone began to carefully discuss in their team chat. Directly charge Lord Grimm, sitting halfway up the pyramid. That possibility wasn't even mentioned. The match seemed to be locked in a stalemate. The small chance that Happy had hoped for didn't happen, and Samsara, having had all their plans and strategies exposed by the opponent, weren't sure how to continue. Switched to an area that Happy couldn't observe. Then what if Happy just didn't come? Would this battle of this match be triggered by the judge getting involved and forcing the 2 teams to meet? Happy was patiently waiting for Samsara's movements, and Yishu wasn't idle. He helpfully named another few places on the map for Samsara to use, even some that accounted for strategic coordination between the players. Samsara was finally no longer silent. God, ye have seen through us completely. WuxRWorldAudio.com. Vice Captain Jiang Botao spoke. What, like it's hard? Yishu said. Since you've seen through us, why not come give it a try and attack? Jiang Botao said. It was a very clear provocation, so clear that it was uninteresting. Sure, coming. Who would have thought that Yishu's Lord Grimm actually just stood up, and Happy's other 4 players immediately appeared on the side of the pyramid and began to charge down. Beat them at their own game, make the opponent second guess. Watching the match, Tiny heard Wang Jiexe guessed at the intent behind Yishu's actions. Such a clear provocation, yet Happy had actually directly accepted it. In Samsara's shoes, who wouldn't be second-guessing? Wang Jiexe had the omniscient view, and could see Happy's team chat, so he knew that Yishu hadn't given any detailed strategic instructions to Happy. If not for that, he might also be wondering whether Yishu actually had a strategy that could break through their arrangement. He definitely doesn't. If he did, he would have attacked way earlier. Right, and Happy doesn't have any plans in their team chat. This is a random map. They only just saw this map for a bit from above. Their communication through glances isn't that incredible, right? Yeah, it's just a false show of strength, to make Samsara worry. Then after that, the pro players were all discussing, and their opinions were essentially the same as Wang Jiexe's. But after that, they all got stuck on this question. After that, let Samsara second guess, and then Happy would just charge forth and chaotically fight, without any sort of plan. That was completely illogical. This was an advantage of random maps for the audience. Because the teams couldn't make any secret preparations before the match, more directions were needed during the battle. The strategic plans of the 2 teams could be completely seen from their team chats. But right now, Happy had actually had no plans. This was simply too irrational. What were they trying to do? End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1678. Wording. Audio source. WuxRWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1678. Wording. Translator. Nomyami. Editor. Nomyami. Was it a feint? Or was it a bluff? There seemed to be only these 2 possibilities. Which one was it? The viewers were merely guessing for the fun of it, but for Samsara, the guessing would affect whether they won or lost this match. As a result, Samsara's guess was crucial. Everyone was staring intently at Samsara's team chat, observing the rapid discussion taking place there. Samsara didn't hesitate. They didn't waver because of these possibilities, because they didn't even bother discussing whether it was a feint or a bluff. From the beginning, the direction of Samsara's discussion was to look for a solution to both possibilities. Samsara rushed out. Whether it was a feint or a bluff, Yishu was targeting their understanding of the terrain. Samsara had given up on utilizing the area that they were familiar with. Instead, they chose to leave and welcome Happy directly. Did Yishu's words really have that much of a psychological impact on them? Not necessarily. But Samsara didn't lower their guard. It was similar to when Happy had been on top of the pyramid, fully prepared in the unlikely scenario that Samsara would brainlessly charge up the pyramid. In contrast, instead of just being prepared, Samsara wanted to eliminate even the unlikeliest of scenarios. Because of Yishu's imposing air, everyone felt like the atmosphere of the match had been ruined. In reality, from these small details and from the way both teams approached this fight, the atmosphere wasn't ruined at all. It was completely in line with how the finals should be, careful and cautious as if this was their last hope, refusing to let even the slightest possibility go. Finally, the two teams met. Samsara charged out from the ruins, while Happy's charged down from above the pyramid, losing their height advantage. The two sides gradually approached, intentionally controlling their pace. Their footsteps were neither too fast nor too slow. Dancing Rain raised her hand cannon. Cloud Piercer raised his dual guns. These two long-range classes were about to enter each other's attack range. But the first to erupt wasn't the two long-ranged attackers, but Happy's team chat. An, fall back. Tang, right, go around 3. Kiao, right, follow 2. Su, stay back, go high. 4 orders in quick succession. Go around 3, follow 2. Most of the viewers were confused. A few of the more attentive ones, who paid attention to how teams communicated with each other, could understand the general meaning behind these two phrases. Pan Lin and Li Yibo, the two commentators, had to be mentioned. Even though the two often made mistakes in their analysis, the two were quite diligent with their work. If they weren't skilled enough to understand the team's intentions, then there wasn't much they could do about it. However, the two had spent time going over things that could be studied, like how the team shot callers worded their orders to the team. Although Happy was a new team, their shot calling style and wording wasn't too strange. After all, their shot caller was Yishu, who had led Excellent Era for close to 8 years. His same shot-calling habits had been brought over to Happy, so Pan Lin and Li Yibo didn't need to put in much effort to grasp it again. Most people were confused by the phrases like, go around 3, and follow 2, but Pan Lin was already yelling in astonishment, go around 3, follow 2. This map. Pan Lin's astonishment wasn't towards Yishu's arrangements but the way he worded his orders. Because from what he understood, the phrases, go around 3, and follow 2, were frequently used in their home game matches. In other words, they really only used these phrases in maps that they were familiar with. The numbers 2 and 3 weren't coordinates, but rather an agreed-upon direction. It was suitable for some maps, while unsuitable for others. But for a random map, Pan Lin blanked. Li Yibo had realized it faster than Pan Lin. He had been trying to piece together his understanding of these two phrases and the map's terrain, and he soon discovered that the pieces fit together perfectly. This terrain. Happy had observed this terrain from up on top of the pyramid. Li Yibo said, but they never communicated anything about it in the team chat. Pan Lin said, Certain agreed-upon things don't need to be communicated, Li Yibo said. Changes had begun happening in Happy's formation. Tang Rou and Qiao Yivan started moving towards the right, while Su Mucheng and An Wenyi had started moving back. Yi Xiu's Lord Grimm started moving to the left, leaving the front completely open. For a moment, Happy's healer was in Samsara's direct line of sight. This seemed to be a good opportunity for them to charge right through the middle to him, but Yi Xiu, Tang Rou, and Qiao Yivan were clearly planning on surrounding them. A pincer. It looked like one. But seeing the orders go around 3 and follow 2, Li Yibo explained that Happy's intentions were to separate the enemies. A random map has its advantages. Li Yibo sighed with emotion. His eyes were practically brimming with tears of excitement. If every match had shot callers clearly listing out their team's every move, then he would never make humiliating mistakes in his analysis. Communication through glances, tacit understanding, Li Yibo hated those deeply. Let's see how Samsara will respond. Right now is indeed a good opportunity for them to directly go for Happy's healer, but that would only be the case if Happy's goal is to pincer them. In reality, Happy's goal is to separate Samsara, as a counter to Samsara's attempt to charge straight through the middle. Li Yibo said. What will Samsara do? They haven't said anything in their team chat, but they're starting to make adjustments too. Pan Lin shouted. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Cloud Piercer is lined up in the middle, one autumn leaf in front, healer at the center, Jiang Botao and Wu Qi behind. Samsara is planning on engaging in a frontal assault. A frontal assault? The expressions on the spectating pro players were grave. That was what their formation looked like, but it was too early to tell if that was their plan. Pan Lin elaborated on the positions of each of Samsara's players, but he didn't go in order of when they moved into position. This ordering was crucial. Communication through glances was done starting from one character, creating a butterfly effect where everyone else would react and fall into place. Samsara's change in formation had started with Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer, and Pan Lin had mentioned him first. By the time he had started discussing this point, Samsara's formation had been completed. He had just been going in order from front to back. But if you looked more closely, there was a difference in who moved first and who moved later. Zhou Zekai had been the first to move because he was the team's core. Next was Jiang Botao's Empty Waves, and then Fang Minghua, Wu Qi, and finally Sun Xiang. Sun Xiang moving last wasn't because he was the new player on the team or because he was the most lacking in synergy with the team. It was actually the opposite. Sun Xiang moving last was precisely the reason for why the ordering mattered. If Samsara had truly been planning on a full frontal assault, Sun Xiang's one autumn leaf, the team's spear point, should have been the fastest to react to Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer. Because this frontal assault would be led by him, he needed to be the first to act so that the others could respond to his actions accordingly. But he moved last. The average viewer might not find anything strange about it, but to the pro players, it was suspicious. If Samsara's intentions were for a frontal assault, then this would be considered a mistake on Sun Xiang's part for being absent-minded. However, this wasn't a mistake. The steadiness that Samsara displayed in their formation gave the pro players a sense that Sun Xiang's lateness was to cover up something. But what was it? There wouldn't be a replay for it. For a moment, no one could see through it. They could only wait and see what would happen next. Samsara continued forward. It really did look like they planned on charging straight for Happy's healer. Happy's left and right flank had formed and were beginning to converge. Charge! A character suddenly rushed out from Samsara's formation towards Happy's healer. One autumn leaf. No, Cloudpiercer. Samsara's offense had begun, but the one at the front was Josei's Cloudpiercer. End chapter.
The King's Avatar. Chapter 1679. Interrupt. Audio source. WuShoWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1679. Interrupt. Translator. Gnome Yummy. Editor. Gnome Yummy. The sound of a gunshot wasn't surprising to anyone. Long-ranged classes almost always made the first attack. However, Josei's Cloudpiercer didn't just attack, he charged forward. In the blink of an eye, Sun Zhang's one autumn leaf was left behind. What kind of rhythm was this? Everyone watching was astonished, but their doubts didn't last long. Josei's Cloudpiercer started attacking, and the rest of Team Samsara soon followed. Did they attack too? No. None of the other four players coordinated attacks with Josei. The four characters contracted the formation. One autumn leaf, laughing song, cruel silence. The three of them formed a triangle, protecting the one in the center, Zhangboteo's empty waves. Empty waves began casting. Magic started to emanate around his short sword, Divine Chain, as if it were trying to establish a connection with some sort of power. Lightning wave formation. The experienced players noticed the sparks of lightning flashing from Divine Chain in its surroundings, and deduced what empty waves was casting. The pro players immediately figured out Samsara's plans. It didn't matter whether Happy was trying to surround or separate them with a pincer. Under the protection of the Spellblade's lightning formation, Samsara would not be in danger. Josei's Cloudpiercer became Samsara's main attacker, while the other four became his support. Samsara wasn't going to give Happy even the slightest opportunity. Can Happy interrupt it? Pan Lin spoke. He realized where the crucial point lay. The cameraman quickly switched viewpoints. The focus was first given to Suma Chung's Dancing Rain. Then, the camera moved towards Empty Waves. Empty Waves' position was very subtle. It was just outside of Dancing Rain's range. The camera turned again to Happy's other long-ranged character, Lord Grimm. Yishu. Countless people were looking forward to what he would do. He always seemed to be able to do the impossible. Sure enough, Lord Grimm started to move. He had originally been hiding in the ruins. Suddenly, with a flicker, he came out from behind a broken wall. Gunshot. But no sound could be heard, because gunshots had been ringing the entire time. Josei's Cloudpiercer had open-fired. Yishu's Lord Grimm's sudden gunshot was perfectly in line with one of Cloudpiercer's gunshots. The two overlapped, one obscuring the other. The only sign that Lord Grimm had fired his gun was a flash of light. Everything had happened in an instant. The broadcast couldn't keep up with these changes just by switching between viewpoints. Fortunately, for the live audience, the stadium's projection technology allowed them to see a more comprehensive view of the battlefield. It was just that the details need to be caught by the viewer themselves. Bang! A seemingly silent bullet shot out and exploded. Lightning was still crackling around Empty Waves' Divine Chains. Lightning began to gather around, creating a net of electricity. The interrupt failed. The bullet had been blocked by a jet-black streak of light. Spear Evil Annihilation. The awe-inspiring one autumn leaf stood in Yishu's way, putting a stop to his plans. This wasn't the first time, but no matter how many times Chen Guo saw this scene, she would always feel uncomfortable. The gunshot was blocked, and it was no longer possible for Yishu to try again. Lord Grimm couldn't even see Empty Waves anymore from his position. Moved get to another position. But the cast time for lightning wave formation wasn't very long. There wasn't much Yishu could do in that short window. There wasn't anything more Lord Grimm could do. But Happy's plan was to pincer Samsara from two sides. The left wing had been blocked, but the right wing had only just started. The two players on the right wing didn't have long-ranged capabilities. To interrupt Empty Waves, they need to get close. Tangru's soft mist rushed forward. Too impulsive. How crazy. The pro players let out sighs. They clearly didn't agree with Tangru's decision. The other side had 4 people in a fully defensive formation, yet she wanted to get close and break through it. She was practically sending herself into the tiger's mouth. Even if she successfully interrupted Empty Waves, what next? Soft Mist would be surrounded by 4 players. Even if Yishu and Chao Yifan were close by, Happy would be in a very bad position. Dragon breaks the ranks. Soft Mist charged forward as if she were unstoppable, bringing her unrelenting momentum from her 1v3 in the group arena. Maybe actually. Seeing her grandeur, some of the people who felt like Tang Ru had been too impulsive suddenly weren't sure anymore. They felt like maybe she really could break through Samsara. Samsara responded as if they were facing a huge threat. They need to put their all into their defense, but the one who stepped forward to face Soft Mist made everyone surprised. Laughing Song? Fang Ming was Laughing Song, Samsara's healer. Looked like he was planning on stopping Dragon Breaks the Ranks. How is that possible? Countless people cried out in astonishment. Laughing Song raised his cross angel's protection, and began casting a spell. This is... A white light flew out in front of Laughing Song. Halo Smash. A paladin skill. At max rank, it was an unbreakable shield. Whether it was magic or physical, no attack could break past it. But Laughing Song was a cleric. This Halo Smash was a bonus skill on his weapon, and could only be at rank 1. How could a rank 1 Halo Smash stop Soft Mist's Dragon Breaks the Ranks? The pro players quickly calculated in their heads. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Halo Smash. Even at max rank, it would only be able to just barely block the attack. But at rank 1, Dragon Breaks the Ranks would be mitigated somewhat, but Laughing Song would certainly take a huge hit. But then again, looking at his positioning, as long as he could mitigate the blow, Empty Waves would be protected. Soft Mist would no longer be able to interrupt Empty Waves' cast. Then, there was no then. Her attempt would be done. The cast would be completed. Soft Mist's Dragon Breaks would be stopped, and she would no longer have any more opportunities. Samsara was different though. Wu Chi's Cruel Silence had his dagger ready for when Soft Mist and Laughing Song collided. Silent Thunder. This was the name of the dagger in his hands. It kept a low profile, almost invisible inside Cruel Silence's sleeves. As expected, it won't work. Seeing Samsara's response, everyone who had thought that maybe Tang Ru could do it suddenly changed their minds. But to everyone's surprise, just before Soft Mist's Dragon Breaks the Ranks collided with Laughing Song's Halo Smash, Tang Ru cancelled the skill. Turn, sidestep. Using the leftover momentum from Dragon Breaks the Ranks, Soft Mist suddenly slid to the side. Was there an opening there? The sudden change had astonished everyone. The others on Samsara had to put their attention on Soft Mist. But Empty Waves wouldn't be interrupted. The surrounding electricity suddenly formed a net. Lightning wave formation had been set down. But at the same time, on the ground where the lightning crackled, a flower of darkness quietly unfurled. End chapter.